why did I do the Ironman? That's the question. The question is, why did I do the Ironman, and did it have anything to do with me having cancer? And the answer is, it had nothing to do with me having cancer, but it had everything to do with cancer in a way, because the very first time I ever saw an Ironman was watching it with my father, and we watched Julie Moss cross over the finish line in that famous, Wide World of Sports footage where she actually collapsed and ended up crawling across the finish line at, I think it was 1983 at Kona. And I was 14 years old and ish, and my father had been fighting cancer my whole life. He was diagnosed when I was a year old, and they gave him 5 years at most. He lived 14, and I'd watched him my whole life get better and get sick and get better and get sick. And I can remember watching that footage with him, and I can remember so clearly how it affected him. And I mean, I was a dumb teenager at the time. I didn't understand why it affected him so much. But what I know now, after going through cancer myself, and after going through the Ironman myself, I know that watching someone else battle their body, and watching the mind win, and watching the decision win, the decision that says, I'm going to do this thing, and this is not going to stop me, and a diagnosis is not going to stop me, as in my father's case, or my body shutting down is not going to stop me. That is a powerful thing to see. And I think for my dad, watching that, it just meant something to him, watching someone battle their body and win and cross a finish line. And it would mean something for me years later. And so there was plenty of time when I was training, when I was like, I didn't want to do it. I was exhausted. I didn't think I could do it. And, there was never anything as clear as like, I'm doing it for you, Dad, or anything like that. But I know there is something deep within me that says that I get to decide. I get to decide if I'm going to cross the finish line. And that's not a decision you make on race day. That's a decision you make months and months and months before, when you decide that you're going to do this thing and you're going to give it your all. And there's something beautiful about tapping into that part of yourself that you've never reached before. And why not? I mean, this is it, we don't get another chance at life. It's cliche, but it's not a dress rehearsal. And either you go for it now, or that train's leaving the station. And I think we've got to, in our lives, we all have to decide that we're going to do that thing that scares us the most, and that thing that we think we cannot do. Because why not? And when you do, and when you cross that finish line, it will be that moment that you can look at your spouse and say, it wasn't that hard. It wasn't that hard. You just have to decide.